All right, let's get right into it. When you hear the plagues of Egypt, you probably picture a story of divine anger, right? Spectacular destruction and punishment. But what if there's something much, much deeper going on? Today, we're going to look at a fascinating way to read this story, not as an act of destruction, but as this profound statement about creation itself.
I mean, the usual take is pretty simple. You've got a stubborn king, a vengeful god, and this whole series of over-the-top punishments. It's this epic showdown. But looking at it that way might mean we're missing the entire point of the story. Because when you dig into the text, the plagues start to look less about punishing Pharaoh and way more about revealing the very nature of God as the creator. It's almost like a story designed to teach the world what it actually means to build, to create order, and to give life. So the idea here is that the goal was never just to bring Egypt to its knees. No, it was to show something absolutely fundamental to Pharaoh, to the Egyptians, and yeah, even to the Israelites themselves. Think of it like this. Pharaoh had built a world based on oppression and chaos. So the plagues weren't just random acts of violence. They were a divine lesson, a chance for him and everyone else watching to see beyond the limits of human power and get a glimpse of a higher creative purpose for the world. He was being given a chance to learn. Okay, but this brings up a huge question, one that a lot of people get stuck on with this story. If God is all-powerful, did Pharaoh even have a real choice? Or was he basically just a puppet in some kind of cosmic play? You know, the text can be pretty confusing on this, especially when you read that famous line, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. It really does sound like Pharaoh is being controlled, doesn't it? Like a robot just programmed to say no. But if you look a little closer at the original language and how the story unfolds, a very different picture starts to emerge. Check out the difference in the wording here. In the beginning, the text is clear. Pharaoh actively hardens his own heart. It's his call. It's only later, after he refuses again and again, that the language shifts. Then it's described as God hardening his heart, almost like God is just confirming the choice that Pharaoh already made for himself. And this quote from Exodus, it just spells it out perfectly. Moses literally gives Pharaoh the controls. He says, "You tell me, when do you want these frogs gone?" Pharaoh could have said, "Now, get rid of them now." But what does he say? Tomorrow. He is explicitly given a choice, a moment to act, and he does. He's an active player here. So the narrative really goes out of its way to show us that Pharaoh was no puppet. He was a leader who got chance after chance to turn things around. His free will was respected, even when he used it to make disastrous choices. Okay, now this is where the whole creation theme just explodes. The argument is that the plagues are not random at all. They are a systematic dismantling of the created world. You could even call it an active anti-creation. I mean, just look at these parallels. It's not subtle, is it? In Genesis, God uses dust to create human life. In Exodus, that same dust becomes a plague of gnats. The waters that are meant to bring forth life suddenly turn to blood and kill everything in them. It's a step-by-step reversal, showing that the same power that can build the world can also unbuild it. But here's the kicker. Pharaoh's own magicians, they had some tricks up their sleeves. They could also turn water to blood. They could copy some of the destruction. But what was the one thing they could never, ever do? They couldn't reverse a plague. They could only add to the chaos. They had zero power to restore order. That, it turns out, belongs only to the Creator. And this is the moment of truth for the magicians. They try to replicate the plague of gnats, and they just can't. They have to admit defeat. They realize they are up against a power that isn't just about destruction. It's a power that defines what is and what isn't. A power that can create and, yes, uncreate. So this leads us to another really cool idea in this whole interpretation, the concept of separation. Now, usually we think of separation as a bad thing, right? Dividing people, creating walls. But in the book of Genesis, separation is actually a creative act. The whole point is that when God separates things, it's to bring order out of chaos. It's not about exclusion. It's about creating distinct spaces and functions so that life can actually flourish. It's a good thing, a life-giving thing. Just think back to the first chapter of Genesis. Separating light from dark gives us day and night, a rhythm for life. Separating the waters gives us sky and sea, different environments for creatures to live. Separating one day from the others gives us the Sabbath, a sacred time for rest. Every time God separates something, it leads to more order, more potential, more blessing. We, on the other hand, we tend to do the exact opposite. We separate people based on money, on power, on who they are. Our divisions create oppression and conflict and chaos, the very things that God's creative separation is meant to fix.
Which brings us right back to Egypt. When God separates the Israelites in Goshen and spares them from the plagues, it's not just playing favorites, it's a demonstration. It's a living example of that creative separation, setting a people apart to show the world the original plan, a community living in blessing and order. So, what does any of this mean for us, right now? Well, seeing the story this way turns it from just an ancient tale into this powerful, timeless message about what it means to lead and what our responsibilities are as human beings. The story seems to be saying that the true calling of any leader, whether you're a king, a parent, a CEO, whatever, is to act like a partner with the Creator. Your job is to bring order from chaos, to encourage growth, and to create a place where life can truly thrive. And Pharaoh, of course, is the perfect example of the opposite choice. He's driven by fear, by his own ego, and his need for control. And in the end, he becomes an agent of anti-creation. Instead of nurturing life, his choices bring slavery, death, and total chaos to his own people. So really, that's the final challenge of the story. It's a call to action for every one of us. It asks us to look at our own lives, our own influence, and to make a conscious choice. Are we going to align ourselves with the forces that build up, that bring order, and that give life?
And that leaves us with this final big question. In our own lives, in our own communities, in a world that often feels full of conflict and chaos, how do we do that? How do we choose a creative response when a destructive one is so much easier? That's definitely something to think about.